Hello, and a really big warm welcome to this presentation from the Urban Penguin. My name is Andrew Mallett, and in today's presentation we're going to look at how we can control execution of Ansible Playbooks across our hosts. Now, of course, we know that we can set our hosts that we want the playbook to run within inside of our play and just put the group or host that we want. However, if we have a rather large group that we've set, maybe even the all group, it can be very easy that we run a playbook across many hosts that we shouldn't be executing across. So maybe it's much better to go through and set the hosts to a variable and populate the variable from the command line. So come on, let's look at how this is done. Now, come on and enjoy yourself. Soak up this Pixel Playground. A Pixel Playground that is made up of Rocky Linux 9.3. As is our normal starting point, we can go through and use hostname CTL, and we can then double check what we're actually running. So Rocky Linux 9.3 inside a VirtualBox. When I go through and take a look at Ansible, which is already installed, we've got Ansible Core 2.14.9. So 2.14 is a relatively new version of Ansible, so we should be good to go with this. When we go through and just check our configured hosts, if I go through to the group all and just use the ping module to see how many of them are actually paying attention, and look at this, we've got our 3 hosts are all responding with a very healthy pong. So we are up and running with 2 remote hosts and, of course, my local host, my Rocky 9.3 system. Now, whilst we're okay running this from our command line, very often we're going to want to run things from playbooks. But we're going to need to ensure that that playbook is run exactly on the hosts that we require. Now, of course, if we want to do this inside of our playbook, we can, and we can specify our hosts within our play settings, which is all well and good. But if we need to run something that's perhaps a little bit sensitive or something we need to take care of, we want to control the execution on the hosts. So as I go through and create my playbook here, we can name the play. I'm just calling it Take Care. We can go through and specify our group all, but even if we're being a little bit more careful and putting like a group called Linux, so only the Linux hosts, one would assume, would be in the Linux group, that still may not be the execution that we want at the time. So it's a little bit dangerous adding in the group or the host to your host list like we're doing here. And we'll just investigate this a little bit further. As we go through, we don't need to elevate our privileges, so I just put become false, and we can then gather facts. We don't need any of our OS facts at the moment, so we can set this to false. We can begin our tasks, and don't worry, we're not going to do anything too drastic, so you're welcome to follow through. We can set up a name of the task, do stuff we need to take care with. Again, the spelling doesn't really matter. We can then use our debug module. So if we're using the collection name, there's ansible.builtin.debug. We can put our colon in and then make sure that we indent on the next line to set our properties of this. We don't have to set too much here, but if we go through and say set our message, so MSG, we can go through and then display a debug message returned from our hosts. So I told you, or whatever we want to spell it, to take care. Now, to say there's nothing really bad going on here. Obviously, we're just printing to the screen, so we don't really need to take care. But we can see what's going to happen if we go through and then just run this with our Ansible playbook, assuming that the group is set correctly. We go through and execute it, and of course it's executed across all 3 hosts. And maybe we should be checking then the group before we actually execute the playbook. But we've all been in those situations, haven't we? We should have checked it, we forgot to check it, and now we're paying the price. There is a way where we could use minus limit to limit the number of hosts that it's going to run on. So we could then go through and specify limit to just the local host, and we can see then that we get the message coming back just from the local host. But the bad thing about this is relying on me doing something from the command line. Whereas we've already seen, if we were relying on me to check the playbook for the group name, we can see that that was already a problem. So we're going to edit our playbook now and go back to our play. And rather than hard code the host list, we're going to add in a variable. It's going to be a string, so we're going to make sure that it starts with our quotes. And then we can use our double brace brackets. And I'm just using a variable here called hosts. Now that variable doesn't exist, so I'm going to have to create it during the execution. So if I now go through and try running without any options from the command line, so it's just executing the playbook, and really we're saying that we've forgotten to do any of our checks, well, we can see now that we're getting an invalid variable because it's not set. So I can then go through and set my variable with the -e option, hosts equals localhost, and now we can see the execution works. And maybe we've seen now that it works well enough to run it across our group, but we can now choose the group that we want to run it across, so hosts equals Linux. So this gives you an idea of some of the things that we can put into place to ensure that we're getting the safest execution of our playbooks.
All that is left to say is thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this, then you are probably sadder than I first thought. For more of this drivel, please subscribe, like and comment to @TheUrbanPenguin.